The Galactic Zoo was known across the stars as a place of fear and wonder, a monument to the most dangerous life forms in the galaxy. Hidden deep within the Sarthak Dominion, its cages held creatures that could destroy entire cities, beasts that hunted with silence and killed without warning. The zoo was not for entertainment. It was a display of power, a reminder to all species of what lurked in the dark corners of space. It had taken centuries to gather these apex predators, and many lives had been lost in the process. No visitor came without guards, and even those were trained in emergency escape protocols. But on one strange and forgotten day, something happened that made every guard forget their pride, every scientist question their knowledge, and every species shiver with quiet fear. A small Earth scout vessel, barely more than a tin can with wings, crashed on one of the zoo's outer observation worlds during a routine supply run. The crew, 4 humans from a planet considered primitive and unremarkable, were declared lost. The Dominion expected they had been eaten within the first hour, but when search teams finally arrived a week later, they didn't find bodies. Instead, they found the remains of predators: burned bones, cracked skulls, cooked flesh, and signs of survival. At first, the Dominion leaders thought it was sabotage, or some kind of faked attack, but the footage told the real story. Security drones had recorded it all. The humans, with nothing but survival kits and their instincts, had turned the zoo's nightmare creatures into meals. They worked like a unit, fast, clever, calm under pressure. They set traps with basic materials, hunted in coordinated movements, and when they killed the first predator, a skarn viper known for melting bones with its breath, they laughed around a fire, cooking its meat like they'd done it 100 times before. One of them, a woman named Lena Cross, even kept a journal that described the taste of each predator like a food critic reviewing fine cuisine. The Sarthak officials were horrified. These weren't soldiers, not elite hunters or genetically enhanced killers. They were explorers, scientists, and one of them was a chef who claimed she joined the mission just for the stars and the snacks. As news spread, panic began to rise in quiet corridors of power. The zoo's greatest shame wasn't the loss of a predator. It was the fear that these creatures, once symbols of galactic power, had been turned into dinner by beings no one had taken seriously. Experts argued on the news channels, trying to explain it. Some said it was a mistake, a one-time event. Others whispered darker theories, that humans were not prey, not even predators, but something more dangerous, something that evolved to hunt fear itself. The zoo's administrators tried to cover the incident, but it was too late. A leaked video showed a human calmly removing the poisonous glands of a yerk beast with a smile, tossing them aside like garlic, then searing its meat over a flame while casually chatting with his crewmates. The public couldn't decide whether to laugh, cry, or stay silent. A place that had once symbolized terror now became a story told around bars, on military stations, in classrooms, and war councils. How did the weakest-looking species in the galaxy do what no elite warrior ever could? Why didn't the predators scare them? Why did they smile in the face of death? And worse, why did they seem to enjoy it? The Sarthak Dominion launched a private investigation. Captain Krevax, one of the Dominion's most respected enforcers, was assigned to meet the human survivors. He expected fear, confusion, or maybe arrogance. Instead, he found relaxed, friendly faces, talking about survival like it was a weekend camping trip. It wasn't that hard. Lena Cross explained with a shrug. Back on Earth, we've hunted worse. We just did what we've always done. Stay calm, adapt fast, and don't waste meat. Her tone was simple, honest, and somehow more terrifying than any threat. Krevax left the interview with cold silence in his heart. These were not killers. They were survivors, and the galaxy had no defense against beings who smiled while turning terror into a feast. Soon, planets across the Dominion began to reconsider the status of apex predator. The term lost its meaning. What was the point of labeling a creature dangerous if a human could bring it down with a stick, some rope, and a portable grill. Military forces began studying human tactics. Science guilds launched studies into Earth's evolution. Some argued that the planet's history of dangerous wildlife, natural disasters, and constant conflict had shaped humanity into something different, something not meant to survive the galaxy, but to dominate it through sheer stubbornness and creativity. And still, the humans didn't brag. They didn't conquer, or boast, or claim superiority. They just kept exploring, learning, hunting when needed, and smiling when the fire was warm and the meat was done. That's what made the galaxy nervous the most. Not the violence, not the danger, but the fact that humanity didn't see anything strange about what they'd done. To them, it was normal. It was Tuesday. The Galactic Zoo was quietly shut down after the incident, renamed Zone 9 and marked as restricted space. But people still talked. The story became legend. A tale of 4 lost humans who rewrote the meaning of danger in a galaxy that thought it had seen everything. And every time a new species discovered Earth and tried to classify as creatures, they were met with a gentle warning. Don't visit the zoo. The real predators have already escaped. The name Earth once meant nothing to the galaxy. It was just another mud-covered, storm-battered, war-scarred planet spinning in the edge of a dull system, full of noise, pollution, and species barely worthy of space travel. But after the Galactic Zoo incident, everything changed. Now, the word human carried weight in conversations across star councils and military fleets, and Earth was whispered about in hushed tones by generals, hunters, and scientists alike. A place previously laughed at was now being studied with fear and fascination. The Sarthak Dominion, embarrassed by what happened on Zoo World, sent one of its elite officers, Captain Krevax, to investigate deeper. He was known for his logical mind, sharp instincts, and complete lack of fear, having led extermination campaigns against the razor-spined Onthari and survived alone for a month in the acid jungles of Vornak Prime. He had seen true danger, or so he thought. Arriving at Earth's orbital station, he expected to find wild chaos, or perhaps a highly trained predator civilization. Instead, he found humans lounging in soft clothes, sipping hot drinks, laughing loudly, and discussing weather and food with great excitement. Nothing about them looked deadly. They were not armored. They didn't walk like warriors. Most of them weren't even carrying weapons. Yet the more he watched, the more unsettling it became. Humans spoke of dangers casually, a storm that destroyed cities. We call it a hurricane. It's not that bad. A venomous snake that killed with one bite. We just wear boots and watch our step. A beast the size of a transport craft with teeth like blades. Oh, that's just a bear. Don't poke it. Krevax listened in silence, his translator feeding him story after story of humans surviving, fighting, adapting, and eating creatures that other species wouldn't even approach. They didn't glorify these things. They spoke like it was routine, like it was part of life. They weren't proud. They were used to it. When he asked about their hunting methods, a human named Ellis, a biologist and weekend hunter, shrugged and said, "We just observe, find weaknesses, use tools. No need for brute strength when you've got a brain and a campfire." Krevax asked what happened if the animal was too strong. Ellis chuckled. "Then we just call a few friends. Pack hunting. It's how we've always done it." It chilled Krevax more than he expected. Humans didn't just fight to survive. They hunted with thought, teamwork, and planning. But that wasn't even the most disturbing part. The real fear came when he studied their food culture. Humans had a long history of turning predators into meals. They had thousands of cooking styles, spices, heat levels, and preparation techniques for meat that once roamed as dangerous beasts. The worst monsters of Earth's wild past have become recipes. Lions, crocodiles, sharks, wolves, even venomous insects had found their way into human dishes. There were entire festivals centered around cooking creatures that once ruled the food chain. It was not done with cruelty, but with passion. For humans, the kill was only the first step. The real challenge was the flavor. They called it adventure cooking. Krivax viewed footage of humans in deep forests, alone with nothing but knives and fire starters, tracking animals for days just to prepare one perfect meal. What kind of species spent so much effort not to destroy a threat, but to understand it, taste it, and share it with friends? He met with a famous human chef, Nora Hayes, who had written a best-selling book titled Beasts to Banquet, Apex Cuisine Across Earth. She greeted him warmly, offered him tea, and explained in cheerful detail how most of Earth's predators had been hunted, cooked, and reviewed for texture and seasoning. "It's not about dominance," she said. "It's about respect. If something tries to kill us and fails, the least we can do is not waste it." Krivax couldn't believe what he was hearing. In most galactic cultures, apex predators were treated with fear, awe, and sometimes worship. On Earth, they were treated with garlic butter. The Council of Apex Studies released a warning after these discoveries, labeling humans as high-risk adaptive omnivores with unpredictable social behaviors. But it was too late. The reputation had spread, and soon humans were being invited, not for peace talks, but for hunting tournaments, survival contests, and predator challenges. Every time, they smiled politely, shook hands, and returned victorious, with leftovers. When the Velcrin Empire, known for breeding the deadliest biohunters in the galaxy, sent one of its prized beasts to Earth as a test, it was devoured within hours. The humans had even made a viral cooking video titled Velcrin Chili, Galactic Fire in a Bowl. It sparked both culinary interest and political panic. The galaxy was beginning to understand something terrifying. Humans didn't just survive dangerous environments. They turned them into dinner parties. Krivax compiled his report with quiet dread. He had come expecting to find monsters in disguise. Instead, he found cheerful, curious beings who looked at apex predators not with fear, but with challenge, and worse, with appetite. Earth was no longer a mud world. It was now a symbol of unpredictable strength, intelligent savagery, and cultural confidence that no species had prepared for. They didn't kill for fun. They didn't fight to dominate. They did it because that's how they grew up. That's what Earth taught them. Fight smart. Stick together. Learn everything. Waste nothing. And always eat well. In the final page of his report, Krivax wrote a single line that echoed in military halls and scientific labs for years to come. The humans are not at the top of the food chain because they are the strongest. They are there because they learned how to eat it. And from that day forward, no predator in the galaxy looked at a human the same way again. News of the humans' strange talent had reached the far corners of the galaxy, and while most species responded with caution or curiosity, the Varnak coalition took it as an insult. The Varnak were proud hunters, descended from a warrior class that once hunted the void serpents of their dying sun. Their culture was built on the hunt. Every young Varnak had to face a trial beast before they could earn a name. They didn't use advanced weapons or tech during the trial, only their claws, instincts, and tradition. When the humans started gaining fame as meat-eaters from the mud world, Varnak pride was wounded. To them, hunting was sacred, not something to be joked about with cooking shows and casual stories. So, in a move that surprised the entire Council of Galactic Relations, the Varnak Chancellor publicly challenged the humans to participate in the ancient rite of the Great Hunt. It was meant to prove who truly belonged among the apex predators of the stars. The rules were simple but brutal. One team from each species dropped into the untamed wilds of Dravakar, a death world filled with ancient beasts, venomous winds, and terrain designed to break even the strongest. They would have 72 hours to track, confront, and defeat a creature known only as the Umbra Maw, a predator so fierce that most Varnak teams didn't return. The humans accepted the challenge without hesitation. No politics, no negotiation, just a calm nod from Captain Rice, the human team leader. She simply said, "We've never hunted an Umbra Maw before. Should be fun." Her words echoed across the galaxy, stirring laughter among some, but silent dread among those who knew what the humans were capable of. The Varnak sent their finest, 7 elite hunters, all decorated veterans of dozens of kills, armored in tradition, sharp with experience. The humans sent only 4. Rise, a former survival instructor from Earth's Arctic Circle. Marcus, a biologist who specialized in predator behavior. Ava, a seasoned combat medic and endurance runner. And Cam, the team's quietest member, an ex-firefighter who had once carried 3 people through a burning jungle during a volcanic eruption. None of them looked like warriors, yet they walked with a kind of confidence that unsettled the audience. The drop happened at dawn. Both teams landed in separate zones. The Varnak immediately began their traditional tactics, marking territory, spreading out, sharpening their bone blades. They moved in a formation perfected over centuries. Meanwhile, the humans moved like shadows. No loud noise, no shouting. Just quiet communication through hand signals and short-range comms. Marcus studied the environment, collected samples, and identified what the Umbra Maw might hunt. Ava tracked blood trails and signs of movement, calculating the creature's sleeping patterns and likely ambush points. Rice climbed a rocky cliff just to get a better look at the wind direction. And Cam, he dug a hole, built a small trap, then said nothing more. Within 12 hours, the Varnak had already lost 1 hunter. The jungle winds carried a poisonous pollen that coated exposed skin, and the warrior's armor wasn't sealed properly. The humans, dressed in lightweight suits designed for multiple terrains, moved unharmed. Rise had anticipated the local flora's chemical defense and had packed counteragents. By the end of the first day, the humans hadn't even seen the Umbra Maw, but they had already mapped out its hunting range, its diet, and its likely nesting area. The Varnak, on the other hand, were beginning to fracture. Pride clashed with survival, and one of the younger warriors accused their leader of moving too slow. Arguments broke out. Their traditional ways had no space for adaptation. The humans watched from a distance, never interfering. On the second day, the Umbra Maw struck. It attacked the Varnak camp in silence, emerging like a living shadow, its skin absorbing light, its claws slicing through armor. 2 more Varnak were torn apart before the rest managed to drive it back. But they were shaken. Their tactics had failed. Their pride had cost them precious time. Rise and her team didn't try to chase the beast. Instead, they treated its appearance like a test. They examined the wounds, studied the beast's movement, and guessed its next move. Marcus compared it to Earth's big cats, solitary, ambush predators that avoided unnecessary risks. That meant it would return to finish off the injured or punish the threat it now recognized. The humans prepared accordingly. They didn't plan to ambush it. They planned to bait it. That night, they lit a single controlled fire, cooked a piece of dried meat with strong scent markers, and placed it near a trap Cam had built using jungle vines, rocks, and what looked like part of their own rations. Then they waited. The Umbra Maw came as expected, silent, fast, deadly. But it didn't expect the humans to be smarter than it. When it stepped forward to snatch the bait, the vines snapped, a pit opened, and though the creature didn't fall completely in, it stumbled, just enough. Rice fired a shock dart into its leg. Ava struck its side with a modified tranquilizer. Marcus threw flash powder in its eyes. Cam jumped on its back with nothing but a knife and calm precision, jabbing into the creature's spine with a strike designed to paralyze, not kill. It took 5 minutes, but in the end, the beast lay still, breathing but defeated. The humans didn't cheer. They didn't pose for pictures. They carefully checked the creature's health, ensured it wasn't dying, and secured it without harming it further. When they returned with the Umbra Maw still breathing and alive, the galaxy erupted in shock. They hadn't killed the apex predator. They had outsmarted it, respected it, and brought it back as proof of their skill, not just their strength. The Varnak were silent. 3 of their hunters had returned, wounded, exhausted, and humiliated. They had hunted with tradition. The humans had hunted with knowledge. The council declared the humans the winners, but Captain Rice shrugged off the title. "We weren't trying to win," she said, "just trying not to lose." That simple sentence was repeated across galactic networks, sparking both fear and admiration. The humans weren't just meat-eaters. They were planners, observers, survivors. They didn't hunt for trophies. They hunted to understand, to adapt, to overcome. The rite of the Great Hunt had been meant to humble them, to show the galaxy that ancient strength still ruled. Instead, it showed something more dangerous: evolution in motion. From that moment on, the hunting challenge was remembered not as a Varnak tradition, but as the moment the galaxy truly understood what humans were capable of. Not because of their strength, but because of their mind. In the deepest part of the jungle world Thalvaran, a place where sunlight barely reached the ground, and even shadows had sharp teeth, there lived a beast known only in whispers, the Nixer. It was not just a predator. It was the kind of terror mothers across multiple species warned their young about. With black scales that reflected no light, 6 legs for silent movement, and eyes that glowed like molten gold in the dark, the Nixer ruled this planet for centuries. Every attempt to study or capture it had ended in death. Scout drones vanished, soldiers were torn apart, and even the bravest hunters from predator races had never returned. It didn't hunt for food. It hunted for dominance, and it had never known fear. That changed the day the humans arrived. The Galactic Council had officially labeled Thalvaran a forbidden zone, but the humans, after their shocking victory in the hunting challenge, had begun to receive invitations and contracts from curious worlds who wanted to understand how a prey-looking species could bring down apex predators without needing to kill them. One such contract came from the Xilari, a peaceful research species whose outposts kept getting destroyed by the Nixer. They didn't want the beast killed, just relocated, studied, maybe even tamed if that was possible. Most called the request madness, but the humans saw it as a puzzle. Captain Rice was again at the lead, and this time she brought a smaller team. Just Marcus the biologist and Cam the silent survivalist. No weapons beyond tranquilizers, no explosives. Only tools, sensors, and knowledge. When they landed on Thalvaran, the jungle welcomed them with silence, like the trees themselves were holding their breath. The Nixer had sensed them immediately. It always did. It was intelligent, far more than anyone realized. It watched from the shadows, confused at first. These creatures didn't smell like prey. They didn't reek of fear. They moved with calm, like they didn't know they should be afraid. And worst of all, they were studying it, setting traps that didn't catch, just observe, dropping meat that was laced with trackers, not poison, and speaking softly, always softly, as if trying to talk to it, not challenge it. The Nixer grew curious, then annoyed, then angry. It waited until the second night before attacking, not to kill, but to scare. It tore through the jungle toward the humans' camp with such speed that even the plants didn't have time to move. But what it found was not what it expected. The camp was dark, silent, a hologram. And behind it, Cam stood alone, staring at it with calm eyes, holding a small dart gun. He didn't run. He didn't scream. He fired. The dart hit but didn't stop the beast. It roared, more out of confusion than pain, and lunged. But Cam was gone, vanished into the trees. The Nixer was fast, but it found itself chasing shadows. Traps snapped shut, not to harm but to slow. Bright lights flashed into its eyes. Loud sounds disoriented its senses, and strange scents filled the air. For the first time in its life, it backed away from a fight. It didn't understand what was happening. This wasn't hunting. This was psychological war. The humans didn't want to overpower it. They wanted to break its rhythm. Over the next 2 days, the Nixer found itself constantly on edge. Whenever it thought it was alone, it would find a blinking sensor staring at it. Whenever it tried to sleep, strange noises filled the jungle. It began to feel watched, hunted. It moved faster, more cautiously, and every step was filled with doubt. Meanwhile, Reyes and Marcus were mapping its behavior. Cam led it where they wanted, making it think it had the upper hand, while slowly pushing it toward a specially built enclosure, a space that mimicked the deeper parts of its jungle, but was surrounded by energy fields that could not be sensed. On the fourth night, the Nixer made a desperate attack. It caught Cam's scent and chased him into a ravine. This time, it didn't hold back. It moved like lightning, leaping over rocks, snarling with fury. Cam kept running, just long enough. Then he dove, rolled through a narrow tunnel, and the beast followed, only to find itself surrounded. Not by soldiers, not by guns, but by walls it could not see, boundaries it could not cross. It roared, clawed, and tried to leap, but nothing worked. It was trapped. And yet it wasn't hurt. It hadn't been harmed at all. That's when it paused, looked around, and for the first time in its existence, realized something terrifying. It was no longer the apex. The fear didn't come from pain or injury. It came from the unknown. The realization that these soft-looking creatures from a muddy blue world had outsmarted it, cornered it, and shown it mercy. It expected death. Instead, it was left in peace. The humans stayed nearby, feeding it, observing it, talking to it like it was more than just a monster. And over time, it began to respond, not with trust, but with understanding. The fear faded into respect. The council was shocked when the humans returned with the Nixer alive, healthy, and calm. The Silari were stunned when it allowed itself to be moved to a secure sanctuary. And across the stars, predators began to ask a new question. If the greatest beast could learn fear from humans, what hope did the rest have? The Nixer's legend didn't end in death or defeat. It ended with change. A new chapter in the galaxy's view of humans had begun. They were no longer just meat-eaters, hunters, or survivors. They were something else entirely, teachers. And the lesson was clear. Fear doesn't always come from strength. Sometimes it comes from strategy, from patience, from the quiet ones who walk into the darkest jungles, not to conquer, but to understand. And in doing so, turn predators into students. For thousands of years, the galaxy believed it understood strength. The ancient empires, the predator races, the warlords of wild sectors, all of them had drawn a line between predator and prey, believing that size, power, and fear ruled the food chain. Entire species had earned their place at the top by the sharpness of their claws, the strength of their jaws, or the dominance of their fleets. But the arrival of humans had been a slow, quiet disturbance in that system. At first, they seemed laughable, soft-skinned, short-lived, emotional. They didn't have natural weapons, no armored hides, no poisonous glands. Their homeworld was considered a mudball filled with chaotic weather and dangerous creatures, and yet they had not only survived it, they had evolved into something dangerous. It wasn't obvious in the beginning. Humans didn't invade like conquerors. They came as explorers, traders, diplomats. But wherever they went, the galaxy began to notice strange patterns. Predators started avoiding them. Dangerous planets where no one else could survive became home to human colonies. Creatures that once ruled entire ecosystems were being tracked, studied, and sometimes hunted for food. The first shock came when footage leaked from Thalvaran, the jungle world ruled by the Nixer, the apex predator that had never been defeated. The video showed a human team leading the creature into a trap, not to kill it, but to study and contain it. And the most disturbing part wasn't the capture. It was how calm the humans were, how silent, how confident. They didn't rely on brute strength. They used patience, teamwork, and fear against something that had never known either. This footage rippled through the galaxy, and many called it an exception, A lucky case. But then more stories emerge. A deep-sea leviathan on Vurakar tamed by human sonar patterns. An entire swarm hive on Zalith, pacified through human behavioral tricks. Even the cursed Ashtaris, feared for their telepathic screams, were rendered helpless after being exposed to human-developed psychological dampeners. Suddenly, the galaxy began to look at humans differently, and the final moment came during the Summit of Apexes, a gathering where the top predator species of the galaxy came together to discuss balance, hunting rights, and territory. The humans had never been invited before, but this time they were. Not as guests. As participants. When Captain Reyes entered the chamber, every eye followed her. She didn't roar or bare fangs. She didn't wear armor or show trophies. She simply walked in with a calm face and silent steps. And when she was asked what gave humans the right to stand among apex predators, she didn't boast. She told stories, not of wars, but of survival. Of a world where venomous snakes could kill in minutes, where apex land predators stalked forests, where oceans held monsters bigger than ships, and humans still went swimming. She spoke of fire and frost, earthquakes and storms, diseases and famines, and how humanity had adapted, fought, and evolved. She explained that humans didn't climb to the top of the food chain. They crawled there, bleeding, screaming, learning from every scar. And the most chilling part was that they never stopped. While other apex species perfected what they had, humans kept growing, learning new tactics, new tools, new ways to hunt or escape or dominate. She ended her speech with a question that echoed in the minds of all present. If you think we're already at our peak, ask yourself this: how far do you think we'll go tomorrow? That moment broke the illusion. The galaxy had been watching humans like observers at a zoo, assuming they were another clever but weak species. But now it realized it had been looking at the real apex predators all along. Not because humans had fangs or claws, but because they had minds that never stopped adapting, spirits that never broke, and a hunger that wasn't for blood, but for challenge. The fear didn't come from their weapons or their ships. It came from the quiet way they prepared, the cold focus in their eyes when they faced something bigger, and the way they turned survival into an art. After the summit, several predator species began rethinking their status. Some stepped back from old hunting grounds. Others opened diplomacy with humans, not out of peace, but out of caution. And some tried to challenge them, only to find themselves outmatched not in strength, but in strategy. The galaxy had thought it had reached the peak of the food chain. But the truth hit hard and silent like a knife in the dark. Humans were still climbing, and whatever was at the top would soon have company, or competition.